Justin Donald, I really appreciate you hanging out on a Saturday, man.
This is fun. I'm glad. Hey, if there's anyone I want to hang out with on a Saturday, it's you. We always get into fun adventures, great conversation, some good wine or champagne like we have today. So, yeah.
Yes, I love it, man. Well, I have known you for basically my entire adult life. In fact, the first time I met you, I was crammed in a minivan when I was 19, going from Chicago down to Lake of the Ozarks on a sales award trip with Vector Marketing.
That's right. Yeah. What a fun time.
Wild. And from that, you ended up being, I'm going to give a quick rundown on things and then we'll fill in the gaps. But you ended up being one of, if not the most successful division manager for Vector Marketing. From that, you bought a number of mobile home parks. You then started this company, IFM?
Yes.
IFM, which served as a resource for REITs to provide all of the maintenance and management services for real estate investment trusts, which, like, quick interlude. So a real estate investment trust buys 1,000 homes. How the fuck are they supposed to manage those 1,000 homes? And there wasn't a really good way. So IFM was created and you guys went from 0 to 10 million in like 16 months.
Yeah, it went really fast. And really, the interesting thing about that business is it ended up being more on the private side. So it was institutional owners of single family homes and we would service them. So it's the same thing, just, the Blackstones of the world and the American Homes for Rent, your larger ownership groups.
Got it.
Tens of thousands.
Oh,
Invitation Homes is 82,000 single family homes at that time.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so it's not 1,000. It's you have 82,000 homes. Yeah. How do you manage them?
Our sweet spot, for a long time, was anyone that had over 10,000 homes. And there's not a whole lot of groups that have that volume. But we have since kind of come down to, a smaller number. 1,000 homes, I think, is a great number.
So I want to dig into that and also sort of the previous division manager status, because you were managing thousands of people through Vector Marketing and also managing, probably hundreds of managers through that process also. And then we'll jump back into that in a second. But today, you have built this big brand as the lifestyle investor. So you wrote a Wall Street Journal bestseller called The Lifestyle Investor, and you've got a group, and you basically get together and mastermind on how to invest in a variety of different vehicles, but specifically through the lens of cash flow and how does it serve your life. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's the foundation. Everything grew from it being a cash flowing style of investment. And we now, when people kind of accomplish their goals where they have achieved true, financial freedom, that's, for us, we'll call them a lifestyle investor. They have covered their lifestyle with passive income. Then we get to the point where we'll layer on different types of investments that maybe don't cash flow, but we do feel very strongly, or I feel very strongly, on the foundation being cash flow, because it's just more of a sure thing. You're not waiting, you're not banking on appreciation. And then once you have cash flow, it makes it easy to invest in a little higher risk assets or different types of assets. You're getting into the VC space. I still don't like the seed space as much because it's so high risk, but if it's an investment made with cash flow, then it's a lot safer than if you're taking what could be principal and putting into something that's likely not going to work out.
Mm. Yeah, well, I want to talk about that, but before we get there, let's back out to being a division manager, and I want to talk about that before IFM, because presumably those skill sets were pulled directly over to IFM, but you were. Can you give framework just for what Vector Marketing is and kind of what the business model is for people that don't know?
Yeah, so Vector Marketing is the marketing or the direct sales arm for Cutco Cutlery, and for a long time was, and still is, like one of the top places for college students to work, to be able to gain soft skills, and for those that are really hardworking individuals like you, like me, where you could put in extra effort and make a lot more than, what you would make if you were just on an hourly wage or something. You had commission, and so I paid. I sold like you did, and I paid for all my college. I went to the University of Illinois. I paid for everything by selling Cutco. But in between my junior and senior year, I ran an office in my hometown, a suburb of Chicago, and I had this epiphany of how much fun it was to train people and motivate people and really create great sales leaders as opposed to being that myself. And I found that I was a lot stronger at helping and coaching people do it than for me to just get out there and do it. And so I enjoyed this idea of having, 5, 10, 15, 20 great salespeople underneath me. And I was like, oh, I don't have to work as hard, and I actually enjoy this work more. And so I kind of scaled that, and I graduated, and I was like, oh, I was going to go, to Wall Street. I had a few things potentially lined up, and I said, you know what, this vector thing was really fun. I think maybe I'll just do this full time. So I ended up opening an office and did very well that first year, and ended up earning a promotion in 3 years to take over a much larger geography in the U.S. And it was cool that I could do that as a young guy, just out of college, and get into 7 figures pretty early into my career.
Well, and also for a couple of things. One, it's hilarious to me that you just said you like managing people and uplifting people. It's like the bane of my existence. Like I'm working on, I'm leaning in that direction, and I'm getting better there for sure. And I'm just finding that some love for that right now. But, the polar opposite of that was me in that company. And I learned that I could sell, and I could just do more, and I would make more. And I remember vividly Chris Heigl, who was in the role of division manager, also my division manager, poking at me and critiquing me. And he said, yeah, but you haven't a cap on what you're going to make. And I took it as sort of a slight at the time. I had a very hard time learning from mentors and not just falling on my face and learning the lessons myself from mistakes. I should have listened to him when I was 22. But that's hilarious. So I'm working on that, and that's a really good thing to learn early. Also, there's correct me if I'm wrong, but there's sort of a bifurcation of status between a district manager and a division in that company, where as a district, you're still an independent contractor and you are operating independently. As a division, are you on salary with the company?
No, you're still at that point an independent contractor. The next move up to region manager would have been a salaried position, which I never had any interest in.
Got it.
I liked having the autonomy. I liked not having a cap on what I could make. I liked having the tax advantages of being an independent contractor. There was just a lot to me that that type of classification served me and was more advantageous, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so for, the audience largely as entrepreneurs that are, multi 7 or 8, 9 plus figure companies, when you say at a very young age you were making 7 figures, you mean you were actually taking home 7 figures.
Correct.
Right. So the revenue and yes, it was inside of a company, but the revenue for the division was, what were the sales numbers for the division?
So I was generally between like $5 and $10 million in sales.
Got it.
And so, and really at that point, I mean.
And this is at what age?
So when I was running my own office, and it was just mine, but then I deployed a bunch of others. So I was kind of like a division manager who wasn't really yet a division manager. So, I mean, my first full year out of college, I made 7 figures.
Crazy.
Which is nuts because, my parents, I mean, still to this day, are making, I don't know that they've ever really combined. I don't think they're even making more than $75,000 a year.
Wow.
Right. Maybe in their best year ever, it was over 100,000. So I remember thinking that first year, whoa, I just made more than my parents combined, and how much I just
by a
lot.
Like,
yeah. I just felt like that was a real blessing. Like my summer that I ran an office, that summer alone, I made $30,000. So in 3 months, I was making $10,000 a month.
As a kid.
Yeah. And so that was more than both my parents made for that summer. So I was in college as I did that. And I thought, wow, there's a real opportunity here, and I'd like to explore it a little further. And so as I started doing the things that a division manager did before being a division manager, that's kind of why I got the nod pretty early. I was one of the earliest promotions. I think I was 24 years old when I got promoted. And at that point in time, the division was doing early on, I would say 4 mil, and then I was taking home anywhere from about 250 to 750.
That's awesome. And so, again, kind of setting frame here, the only thing that you weren't doing was product creation, really. And there's some customer service elements that corporate did, but product creation was really the main thing, right? So
and fulfillment.
Oh, right. Sure. Yep. And fulfillment, right? So you're running functionally a sales organization.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. And that's awesome. So you lived in the division manager space for a while. What do you think the core skills were that translated there? Like, what did you learn there that you then applied when you started IFM?
Well, I think figuring out how to work with people. Well, first of all, figuring out how to hire good people. That was probably the first thing. The second thing is making sure that I could retain those people, because it's always a bummer when you don't manage someone well and you lose a good person. I feel like I learned how to not hire well as well. And I learned how to hire people that really aligned with. So I kind of figured out through these personality profiles who would be strong to complement my skill set in maybe my own local operation, but then who had a similar skill set of mine to run other locations that we would open up. And so I think the hiring, the training, the motivating, just retention and relationship techniques, I think those served me very well, because that's exactly what I've used in all these different organizations since, building IFM Restoration with a couple of friends, to, a lot of the consulting I did with companies as well, helping them build out sales and recruiting and comp and, leadership development, all that.
From a hiring perspective, you brought up personality profiling. What do you use? There are probably 15 different well-known, well-used personality profiles. And my general take on them is that any of them, as long as you have a framework and you really lean in, can be useful. But people have preferences. And if you pretend to use one, it's a total waste of time. Like if you just do the personality profile and you kind of half know it, and you really need to know the language, right? Because the common language is what allows you to, I think, communicate across your company and get the most out of it. But
yeah, I think it's very clear that if you have some sort of a system with how you assess someone versus not having it, it's a clear winner to have it, any of them. It is by far and away easier to hire and train and have people in the right seats. And this goes for any of them. This goes for the weakest one out there. That's still better than not having one. I think that there are a lot that have a big name, and there are a lot that have like good branding and marketing. I mean, I've probably I've for sure filled out myself almost all of them, because I wanted to understand them. And at one point in time, for some of the companies that I worked with or consulted with, I went through the whole gamut of all of them. And I want to figure out like what is the best, what is the strongest. And I don't know that there's necessarily like a standout best. Like I think you can make arguments that certain things are better for others for certain situations. I found that